Hello, welcome to Smash Hit Sports. I'm Cody, that's Nick. And we had a week of college football. Like there was college football played, not a ton of meaningful college football, but like there were games that happened. We have stuff to talk about. Before we get started though, make sure to like the video. It's a huge help to the podcast and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. We'll do week 12 recap. We'll do winners, losers, dogs of the week. We're going to talk about the SEC because we have a lot to talk about in terms of the SEC. And then we will do a week 13 preview, which this slate I think is a little bit better than last week's, but we'll get into it. But let's start with week 12 recap. And Nick, I want to start before there were any games played. I want to start college game day. And we have Desmond Howard on the panel. And when they bring up Arizona State, Kansas State, saying, why are we talking about this game? My brother in Christ, do you not watch this sport? Like, what are we? Those are two teams that could have potentially played for the Big 12 title. Like, they could have been in the playoff.
I think the genuine, most logical conclusion is that Desmond Howard hasn't watched a single Arizona State game and just assumes they were bad. Or, like, no one told them that they were 7-2 and are not eliminated at all from playoff contention. Because to be like that's horrible. And you're freaking on college game day. Like, but to be fair, Arizona State is usually not even remotely close to being relevant. Usually. So if that's what happened, which has to be what happened, then he's just pathetic that you aren't watching college football. But I guess he's a busy guy.
I understand that. How do you say that live on TV?
With
you know what I mean? That's the thing. Like, if you had not watched that game, you know what I mean? Like, let's say, hey, Nick, you made the show sheet this week. You picked the games that we're going to pick, and you threw a game on there that I wasn't ready for. You know what I mean? What I'm not going to do is sit up here and be like, the fuck's this game on here? Like, between power conference teams. Like, if you threw on, like, two random group of five, it's like, all right, well, maybe that's a little weird.
Yeah.
But to throw on power conference teams like that and just be like, I don't like that just to me seems pretty out of touch. But it is what it is. Desmond Howard a couple years ago had that infamous 14 playoff where he picked like Pitt, Texas A&M, Michigan, and somebody else, and like was so wrong it was unfathomable.
Yep.
The
CTE is getting to him.
It reminds me that even though we are in a position of like, we get to talk about college football. There are people who talk about this and make a lot of money talking about this who have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
The most fascinating part is how he said it and how he was saying it in a way that was like, oh, everyone in the world is going to be like, yeah, so true. Why are we talking about this game? And everyone was like, dude, what are you talking? Like, this is a huge game.
And then for the result of that game for Arizona State to just kick Kansas State's ass. They just kicked their ass for 4 quarters.
And I didn't see what the panel took, but I'm guessing almost everyone took Kansas State, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think maybe Kirk might have taken Arizona State. But like, it was just
like Desmond, I was like, why are we talking about this? Give me Kansas State. Not only is that's an egregious claim, and then he was wrong. So
Yeah.
Early loser of the week candidate. We'll get into that later, but that definitely needed to be talked about.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Big 12. BYU loses late night game to Kansas. Kansas is actively destroying the Big 12. They're on a war path, and I don't know what happened to Kansas early in the year. Like, we talked about them as a potential like dark horse Big 12 title team. Like, the expectations coming into this year were so high, and they have Jalen Daniels, and they have their Devin Neal at running back, right? And they have Kobe Bryant at corner. The expectations were there, and they just came out so flat. But now they are on an absolute warpath. And in the last 2 weeks, they have ruined Iowa State's dreams at a college football playoff berth, unless, somehow they win the Big 12. They have beaten BYU, ruined their undefeated season. And this week, Colorado has to come into Lawrence, Kansas. Kansas is prime to just fuck up the entire Big 12. I'm so excited for this.
It's amazing. This is what they're born to do. They're literally on a warpath. Like that's the perfect way to
Yeah.
put it. And we were saying, or I think I was telling some people, like they are far and away the best 2-6 team I have ever seen in my life. And I mean, they should have beat Kansas State too. You know, like they
Yeah.
very much should have.
Yeah.
Very easily could have beat Arizona State.
Could have
Early.
beaten Illinois.
Could
Like
have
that
beat
was a
like, all these
2-point
games.
game.
Are like, oh, what a they're actually very good. They were preseason top 25. It's like we weren't wrong about Kansas. We were wrong about
Yeah.
their execution early in the season. But they get Colorado at home. Like that, this could just be a stretch of like it's the David or the Grim Reaper meme knocking on every door.
Yep.
It's literally that, and we're watching it happen live. So yeah, very happy for them because it's a lost season, but I feel like this could end up being a very memorable season for KU fans that they like look back on fondly, whereas you really had no right to look back on it fondly. So
yeah. I think if they make a bowl game, they definitely will be. BYU now gets put in a weird spot though, because or the Big 12 in a whole, because with BYU having one loss, they are still the leader in the Big 12 clubhouse, but I think that it all but solidified that we are only going to have one Big 12 team in the college football playoff. I think even if BYU loses in the Big 12 championship, I think at 2 losses, there are so many 2-loss SEC teams. I think BYU's out. I think they are absolutely done. So I think there's no shot that we get a 2-loss Big 12 team in unless they win the conference. So I think the Big 12 is a one big league on it, no matter what.
All right, hear me out in this scenario here, because let's say BYU beats Arizona State, but then loses to Houston, or maybe they lose to Arizona State, then Arizona State loses to Arizona or something, and then Colorado loses to Kansas. You're looking at a potential Big 12 champion that doesn't make the playoff because they're not one of the top 4 conference champs. Do you think that's possible? Where would you put that on a scale of likeliness? Because I don't think it's that far off from a thing.
Maybe like a 1 in 10 shot. Like that's got to be like a
chance.
Less than 10%, but it's not like we're not talking less than 5. We're not talking like a 0% chance. Like there's a legitimate shot, and obviously the biggest game for the group of 5 this weekend is Army Notre Dame. Like that is far and away the biggest game. I think Notre Dame rolls, shocker, but that game, if Army wins, we are talking a completely different story. However, I think there's a potential that Tulane is the best team in the group of 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could, or you could argue, a 2-loss Tulane team should get in over a potential 2 or 3-loss Big 12 champion. Because right now we have a lot of 2-loss teams like Iowa State, Kansas State play at the end of the year, Farmageddon. Like that game could be weird. Like if Kansas State beats Iowa State, that puts Iowa State at 3-loss team. Arizona State, BYU, one of those teams is going to have to lose. Kansas and Colorado, like there is a world in which I could see the Big 12 being left out entirely, especially with looking at the top 25 where they have Tulane and Army and
Boise State. Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely possible. It would take a lot. I do think if BYU beats Arizona State and then drops a fluky one and then wins the Big 12, they probably deserve a spot.
Mm-hmm.
But we could have just a bunch of 3-loss teams that like we could have a weird, like freaking Baylor or something, or like a team where it just doesn't really make sense and they win the Big 12. Where they would just get left out, which I'd be fascinated as to what that would do as far as acceptance of the 12-team playoff, because there would be so much outrage. But that conference is just it's insane year in, year out. It really is.
Yep. And this is what we said coming into the season is like the Big 12, who fucking knows? And it's insane that
going into last year, it's what we said.
Yeah.
Like,
And I'm going to be honest, the 4 teams at the top of the Big 12 outside of Iowa State, Arizona State, Colorado, BYU, you could have told me they would have been 3 of the bottom 4 in the Big 12 this year. And I'd have been like, yeah, I could see it. I think they might have been 3 of the bottom 4 for me. Like it's
I think I had BYU
kind of
bottom,
crazy.
which is nuts. I think I liked Colorado, but like Arizona State, I don't even think I paid any attention to them. I didn't care at all about that team. And then BYU has been shocking, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, nuts. Absolutely.
We have to talk about LSU Florida. Brian Kelly drops his 3rd consecutive game.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida, very quietly, not dog shit. Like, I understand that we made fun of them for putting out the press release that if you have to say that you're not firing Billy Napier, that's probably the wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to change my opinion based on one game against a Brian Kelly team that I think he's just head over heels at this point. But Florida is very quietly not bad, and they have a chance to make a bowl game. And all they have to do is beat Florida State at the end of the year, and they make a bowl.
And they should be able to do that.
Yeah, they will do that. So the fact that their win total was 4.5, they're gonna win 6. Ole Miss has to come into the Swamp this weekend. Like that's not a gimme. We'll pick that game, but I think it's very, very, very plausible that Florida ends up going 6-6, and we are talking about a true freshman DJ Lagway coming into his 2nd year. Like Florida's put together a quietly good recruiting class on the back end. I like what Florida's doing. Like
it is
good on Florida.
It is surprising, right? And they have money that they're very willing to spend.
Oh yeah,
always. Of course they do. So yeah, this offseason, I mean, it could be one of the biggest Cinderella moments of the season of like this team has no chance at sniffing a bowl game. And Billy Napier's guaranteed going to get fired. To then Mike Norvell, is actually the worst coach in that state, and Billy Napier's coming back, and their win total is now 8.5 in 2025, and that would be a freaking miracle. And I'm not surprised they beat LSU. I'm really not. Like going into that game, watching a lot of both those teams play this year, they didn't feel that different outside of Florida's performance against Miami, where they didn't try. They tried to lose on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, they've played in a lot of close games. Their 2025 schedule,
should it be Tennessee?
When I tell you, it is so much easier. It is.
I'm so curious. I would love to hear it.
So much easier. They get Mississippi State, they get Florida State, they get Florida A&M, they get USF. Like their schedule is much easier, and then a lot of their games they end 3 straight road games or 4 straight road games, which is absolutely wild. But they get like a lot of games. Wow, this schedule's actually insane. Their first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games are not outside of the state of Florida. They are all in Florida. The only 2 road games are at Miami, and they play the world's largest cocktail party in Jacksonville. And then their last 4 games are on the road. So like it's not a terribly difficult schedule. Florida, they could be on the rise. Like,
I mean, that's crazy. Whoever crafted that schedule. But yeah, I do. I think Florida could be slowly creeping back. And college football is better when Florida's not a joke. College football needs a good Florida team. They don't need to be great, but a competitive Florida team is good for the sport.
A competitive team in the state of Florida, I think is good for college football too. Like we have Miami this year, but it's been eh. On the other side of that, we have Brian Kelly. 4 losses. We're now in year 3. He's gone 9-3. He's gone 9-3, and then now potentially going 8-4. And that's if they should beat Vanderbilt and Oklahoma to end the season. But
you never know. You never know.
How hot is Brian Kelly's seat? Because I don't think he's going to get fired this year. But we're having the discussion, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would fire him. But it's tough, because the thing is, like, he's not really offering the in-game value that was his sort of calling card. Like he not known for recruiting, not known for motivation, not known for this awesome energy about him, right? He firing everyone up or just being super cool, right? He's kind of just a lame whatever guy who wins games. He executes, he gets his team to play the right way. And that's not happening. So you look at the outside things. If LSU wanted to retain him for another year, be like, well, we need to wait for him to get these, big recruiting classes and transfer classes in. We need to wait for this, that. I mean, dude, if he couldn't do it with Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, and I mean, it's not gonna change. I don't think, not in the SEC. I just don't think he's an SEC coach. So hang him up.
Yeah, this has to be the least fitting coach and team I can ever think of in terms of like who they are and what they do as a coach and who they are and what they do as a program. It's night and day. He's not an SEC football coach. His buyout is currently $61 million, which is absolutely insane. But I don't know what you do if you're an LSU. Like, they're not going to fire him. They go one more year, but damn.
What was Jimbo Fisher's buyout? It was about that, right? Might have been more. Because, Texas A&M already looks better. They all, and that's 1 year into the Mikey Elko era, and it's so much better.
So, Jimbo Fisher's buyout was $77 million.
So it was crazy. So, LSU could do it. If they are just like, hey, we're fucking sick and tired of it. The only problem is, they haven't been like really bad enough for, I think, the athletic director to take the fan base seriously if the fan base is calling for his head, because it's like listen, we were fun last year. We've won some big games this year. Relax, we're fine. I can see that happening.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a real weird spot, but I almost feel bad for LSU fans. But they spent so much of their time this year shitting on me when I told them that Brian Kelly was dog shit, and then now that he is dog shit, they're like really quiet for some reason.
I don't feel bad for them. No.
Let's talk your Clemson Tigers. What a fucking game, huh?
Yeah.
That was crazy.
It was actually the worst thing I've ever seen in my life until that run. Outside, Kate Klubnik was lights out to start the game.
The
only guy, Antonio Williams, was also balling, but for the most part, it was just Klubnik is he's coked up today. He's locked in. And then the offense just completely sputtered and turned into, the old 2023 Iowa Hawkeyes. And, but Pitt on the Pitt side of the ball, I don't know how much of this game you watched, Cody. Did you
I watched the first half and then I turned it off and watched a different game. And then I saw the last play on Twitter. I was like, holy shit, this is insane.
Okay. Yeah. So Pitt in the second half, this happened a lot, but they would have first and goal at the 2, and it'd be an illegal formation penalty. And then the next play would be a false start. And then it would be another false start, and then an illegal formation, and then a holding, and then, a drop pass, and then a holding, and then an illegal formation. And then that was the end of the drive, right? They would have to punt after having first and goal at the 2. That shit was happening left and right all second half, where it's just what? And you could see it. It wasn't the refs were being flag happy. It was genuine. It was the worst I've ever seen a team look. They pissed down their legs so aggressively whenever they got to important situations. And then they had the lead. They had the lead 20-17 with a minute left. Probably the worst coach game I've ever seen. One of the worst executed games I've ever seen from Pitt. And they weren't even that good defensively, and they were winning by 3 with a minute left. And me and my group chat and we are literally sitting there freaking out, because I have never seen anything if we lost that game, there would have been riots because that was like we should have won that game by 50 to 60 points, and it took a miracle. But that miracle was awesome. It was one
Yeah.
of my favorite moments I've ever seen. So
Yeah. Narduzzi thoroughly outcoached that entire game. While we're talking about our teams, did you see the first play of the game for Notre Dame?
I did. Yeah.
So funny.
Just go home at that point if you're UVA.
Yeah, when you muff the kickoff and it like bounces right to a coverage guy and he just walks it into the end zone for the first play of the game. I mean, that is.
You were up 7-0 3 seconds into the game. I don't know if that's ever happened before.
If I'm playing college football 25 and that happens to me, I'm immediately quitting. Like there's no shot that I'm continuing on with that game. So
it was, I genuinely though, the ball bounced so perfectly. Your gunner was running as fast as physically possible, hit him in the lap, and he just continues to sprint into the end zone. I don't know what the statistic is, but that has to be the fastest touchdown ever in the history of the beginning of games. It has to be, right? Because it would take 10 seconds.
Yeah, it just takes longer to return a kick. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate that.
The ball bounced so like your sprint like that so I think you set a record there, which is pretty cool.
Love it. Georgia, Tennessee. Georgia flipped the Georgia switch that they have. They flipped it in the second half. First half of this game was really close, but second half Georgia just pulled away. They ran the ball. Carson Beck looked like a very good quarterback, the quarterback that we expected him to be this year. And I don't know how to feel about Tennessee and like because the 4 teams in the SEC that are all lumped together with 2 losses, Bama, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Tennessee have all beaten each other. So I don't know what to do, truthfully. And it's a really weird spot. Like Ole Miss has that loss to Kentucky that hangs weird. Tennessee has the loss to Arkansas. Like Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Like Georgia at least lost to Ole Miss and Alabama. So like that's the most respectable losses, I guess. But like,
yeah, well, so that's I feel like is the clear glaring like, hey, committee, you had Georgia out. Like what were you doing? That was so dumb.
I think they just knew. They're like, hey, if they win this weekend, then they will be in. Yeah. And if they lose this weekend, we won't have to talk about it because they have 3 losses.
Sure, but they are still putting a lot of doubt. They're planting seeds of doubt of their functionality. But Tennessee, it's one of those things I talk about sometimes. It's very hard to explain, but it was kind of a close your eyes test of Tennessee. You can picture them beating Bama. Obviously, they did it, but even before they had ever done it with that Hendon Hooker team, you could see it happening. You absolutely could. You could see it this year. You know, like a lot of things make sense outside of maybe Vandy beating Bama, but Tennessee, I think Georgia just has their number a little too much. I think it's kind of like the Ravens playing the Chiefs, where it's like, you know, the Ravens are obviously great, but like they're not going to beat the Chiefs, even if they're better than the Chiefs. They're not going to beat them. Yeah. Because it's just what it is, right? So that it kind of felt like that going into this game, where it was like, yeah, Tennessee might be better, but like Georgia's going to win, especially in a bounce back spot, like a massive bounce back spot. I'm not surprised. I'm not necessarily judging Tennessee. It just felt like that is it was a predictable-ish outcome. So no judgment to Tennessee. I think they should still be all right, at least in the competition.
Yeah, I agree. There were some people that kind of talked about this game as if it was an elimination game, and I didn't see it that way at all. I think there's absolutely I think there might be an odd man out of that 4-team group, but I don't think it's Tennessee based on, you know, what I'm seeing. But hey, we'll that'll play itself out hopefully. Oregon, Wisconsin, you stepped up to the plate, Nick. Mm-hmm. You called your shot. You pointed your bat over the left field fence, and you swung your heart out, and you got a hold of it, man. And it went, and it went, and it went, and it just died at the warning track. Yeah, it died at the warning track.
You went almost 385, needed to go 390.
You almost had an unbelievable called shot, because you would have called it not only on last week's episode, but if you listen to our Big Ten preview, he called it back in August or July, whenever we recorded that episode. Would have been legendary shit. And he came up a field goal short, but the point still kind of stood. I mean, the jump around was electric. The environment was incredible. Oregon survived, and I don't hold it against them. I feel like every team has had to survive a game this year. So I don't.
The offense definitely didn't look good. My reason for having enough confidence to actually pick it in our game picks is there are some advanced metrics out there that say that Oregon offensively is not top 15. They're not top 15 as far as like efficiency goes. They're very capable of an explosive play, but Wisconsin's very capable of stopping that.
Mhm.
And so a lot of things lined up where it's like if Oregon has to kind of take, the 10-yard routes or just run the ball, I don't know what that's going to look like. And honestly, the reason it didn't happen is because that was one of the worst second half offensive performances
Oh, it was gross.
ever, dude. Like, and they fired their offensive coordinator because I think they looked at that and was like, how did we not win? And it kind of felt like that. They really did deserve to win that game. And just, it was so bad offensively. The refs weren't helping. But I actually am a little bit worried about Oregon. It just depends on who they're playing. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's tough to say. I still think they could easily win the national championship game, but some of my worries going into this year were showcased a little bit.
Yeah, I think they could easily win the national championship, and I also think that they could lose in the Big Ten championship to Ohio State. So and both might happen. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. Before we get into winners, losers, and dogs of the week, home field, the holiday season's coming. It's almost Black Friday. I'm sure home field is going to do a bunch of incredible sales and stuff. But if you want to use our code, help support the podcast, Nick15 for 15% off your first purchase at home field. Stuttered my way through that ad real bad. But they have all of the best college merch, a ton of like retro looking stuff, like old school logos. Like it's the best merch in the college game, no doubt. So use code Nick15, start your Christmas shopping early. But Nick, winners, losers, and dogs of the week always start with winners. Who is your winner of the week?
My winner of the week is I'm going back to Tyler Warren. Reason is,
dude,
first of all, he's so good. I love
so
that
good.
guy. I cannot wait to see him in the NFL. But speaking of the NFL, Taysom Hill, yesterday was International Annual, Taysom Hill Day, he just has that one day where he puts up a gajillion points. He passes for a touchdown, rushes for 2, catches 1, fumbles, throws a pick, has like 400 yards. It's incredible.
He stuffed every stat. It was incredible.
Exactly. And then you look at you're watching the Penn State game, and Tyler Warren has, like 5 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown, 8 catches, 130 yards and a touchdown. They should honestly give him some snaps at quarterback because, why not? But he's just continuously proving like he's the Taysom Hill of college football right now. And I love that guy. I think he's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. My winner of the week, there are a handful of teams that I just considered dead. I just thought they were done. I was like, whatever, it's over, done, see ya. Like I'm they don't matter. Nothing they do matters.
Right.
And that was what I thought about Baylor. I thought Baylor was dead. I thought Dave Aranda, dead man walking. I thought that this was a program that was going to have to reset and reload, right? And they have now rattled off 4 consecutive wins. And in a resounding fashion, they beat West Virginia on the road. It like a very, very convincing win. They now have rattled off 4 straight, and they end the year with Houston and Kansas, 2 more winnable games. Like Baylor could end up being 8-4 or 7-5, making a bowl game. Regardless, they're exceeding expectations. They're exceeding my expectations for sure. But shout out Dave Arena and Baylor, winners of the week, for just not like having the fucking stones to just keep playing good football. Because there was a while where they were 2-4, and you could have easily let the rails fall off. Your only 2 wins were Tarleton State and Air Force, and you could have let everything get to your head. And you
Dude,
said, "Fuck you, I'm going to keep playing football." So good on Baylor.
yeah, and you look at the Baylor schedule, and you see they were that Shadur Sanders Hail Mary away from beating Colorado, right?
Yep.
They lost to BYU by 6.
Yep.
And those are the 2 leaders in the clubhouse right now. If Baylor had won one of those games, we would be talking about Baylor being a Big 12 champ game legit contender. If they just not let that Hail Mary up against Colorado. So that alone speaks volumes about you have to have faith, even if you fail so aggressively with your new head coach. It's like the Matt Rule thing, where it's like 1 year's bad, but then that next year you're going to take this big leap. And then I'm very excited to see what Baylor does next year, because I now absolutely have faith in them. Absolutely.
Yep. Nick, who's your loser of the week?
Navy. Navy's my loser of the week. What the frick happened to Navy, dude? We were having so much fun talking about, Army Navy potential, playing twice in a row, it being so fun that like the American military teams are good. It's just, this is America, this is football, this rocks. And then they play Tulane at home, mind you.
Yep.
They throw for 13 yards.
Yep.
Their leading rusher had 30 yards. I don't think they got to 100 total yards. They didn't score. I would be shocked if they even reached the red zone. And they lost 35-0 in maybe the most embarrassing loss of the year for any team. They got fucking mangled.
Yeah.
By Tulane. Golly.
They had 113 yards, so they did hit that 100 mark. They were 1 for 11 on third down. Just gross.
Yeah.
Gross.
Disgusting. They should feel like losers. Bad. I'm an Army fan now.
My loser of the week are SEC fans. You are fucking losers for 2 reasons. Over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, all I've heard is you bitching about strength of schedule. That's all I've heard. It's unbelievable. Indiana hasn't played anybody. Penn State hasn't played anybody. Hey, you know who else hasn't fucking played anybody? The number 3 team in the country, Texas. They haven't played a goddamn soul, but we're going to ignore that. And then what you had to do is you had to sit on your couch this Saturday, because I know you didn't go to the fucking game. The stands were absolutely empty, and you had to watch your team play Mercer or Murray State or Louisiana Monroe, or like, it's awful. And then next week, you're going to have to sit on your couch and you're going to have to watch Georgia play UMass, or like it's like Texas playing New Mexico State. It's disgusting. Yeah. It's appalling. It's November, mind you. We are in the most important college football month of the year, and your teams are not playing meaningful football games. And that's 100% on you. And I know that you're going to sit here and say, well, our conference schedule's so hard that we need a little break at the end of the year. If it fucking means more, prove it. If it means more, prove it. Because right now, all you're showing to me is that football doesn't matter that much until you're playing for a title. And if you're not playing for a title, you don't care. That's what this shows me. I'm fine with playing cupcakes, right? Everybody does it. Play them in September, or like play them in September like a man. Put them at the beginning of your season, so that way we can stop having these stupid ass conversations. Because I'm going to have to sit on my couch on a Saturday and watch South Carolina play Wofford. Really? Wofford? That's what we're scheduling this late into the season? You're a bum. All of you SEC fans, bums, losers, I hate you. I don't hate you. I feel bad for you. I feel bad for you.
I can't speak on this, late November,
I
just because Clemson does
we
the same thing.
we
So
can bring that up. When did you become a coward? When
I
did you become a coward? The
no,
Citadel?
this is a thing that we do. It's a thing.
Yeah. Why?
I mean, it's just like you instead of scheduling it early, you schedule it late. It's like a little bye week. It's smart. Um, you
It's
know,
cowardly.
yeah, it's not every year. It's not every year, but they're like the ACC teams sort of take turns on like who gets that easy game, and it's our turn. But I also think that as annoying as it is, SEC fans talking about deserving to have 7 teams in the playoff because no one plays, like the Big Ten is just, the frickin' Big 12 with a good marketing team is what they're saying, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no difference. They stink too. And then you look at, you know, your precious Vanderbilt team that was good enough to beat Alabama. Well, they weren't good enough to beat Georgia State, right?
Yeah.
Your Mississippi State who hang in tough with some teams that got
They
blown
lost
out
to
by
Toledo.
right? You had Florida got smoked by Miami and then they go
Yeah.
beat LSU. And like time and time again, I agree that they have a hard strength of schedule because
Yes.
all of these teams are very worthy and I trust the metric. But what I don't like is when you're like, well, we are clearly superior because of our strength of schedule. Maybe you're battle tested by the end of the year, but against SEC teams, your track record in the past 5 years against the other conferences isn't like that impressive. In some cases, you actually have a losing record against some conferences. So I would just say, yes, SEC fans need to pipe down their egos, but people complaining about the strength of schedule argument need to understand that it is so much harder than yours. If you're a fan of a Big 12 or Big 10 team, Georgia's schedule is harder than your favorite teams.
Yes.
Understand that. But like also Georgia's a
But
different
Georgia and Florida are not every team in the SEC. Let's not get that twisted.
right.
There are teams who are sitting here out like posturing for that. Well, LSU would be 11-1. LSU isn't one of these teams that had a fucking difficult schedule. Don't feed me that bullshit.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I
hey,
agree.
fun fact, you had a chance to play a Big Ten team. How'd that go for you, pal? Like, you can't lean on it. If you're going to use it as part of the argument, that's fine, right? That's totally fine. But if you are going to sit here in my comments and tell me that the only reason that Georgia should be above Indiana or that Tennessee should be above Indiana is that strength of schedule, you have to do better than that. Because that's like, hey, we're 6-4, but fuck, we played a hard schedule, so might as well put us in the playoffs. Then at that point, let's not play the games because then nothing matters.
Yeah. It's tough. So I think strength of schedule should honestly almost just be eliminated from consideration in a sport where there is no cure, right? There is no way that you can make it equal throughout with such a little amount of game time, right? And then like a team like Texas, who has a bad strength of schedule, they scheduled the national champs. Oklahoma is supposed to be good. They played Georgia. Like that alone should just be like, you played Michigan, Oklahoma, and Georgia. That's enough. That's enough for me. You go 2-1 of those games, you of course deserve it. But people are using Texas as an argument of like, they haven't played anyone. I think that I'm tired of that argument, and I made a video on this. I want to see more, EPA metrics and like how well is this team playing, with the sort of like tiebreaker almost being like your head-to-head record or your win-loss. Like if you have 3 losses, but you're a top 10 team efficiency-wise, execution-wise, well, then maybe you're not going to make it, right? But if you are Texas and you haven't played anyone, but you are the 4th best team in adjusted efficiency, adjusted to even everything out, you're the 4th best, then yeah, it makes sense that you're top 4. But everyone's like, no, it has to be who you played. There's no way to make that fair and equal, so it shouldn't be a thing. It really shouldn't.
And here's the other reason why strength of schedule is a really dumb argument. I like it in the NFL. That's fine. And the reason I like it in the NFL is because they set the schedule the year before, right? So like you play the year and then the schedule for the next year comes out, right?
There's also no committee in the NFL, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's no the strength of schedule in the NFL means nothing because there's no one deciding anything.
On June 8th, 2021, Notre Dame announced a home and home with Alabama in 2029 and 2030.
Mm-hmm.
You have any idea how good those teams are going to be at that
They
point?
could both be great. They could both. We have no idea.
Yeah.
They could both be bad.
Notre Dame has Indiana scheduled as a non-conference home and home in 2030. Do you think Notre Dame anticipated the Indiana of years past or this year's Indiana? When Texas scheduled Michigan, do you think they expected last year's Michigan or this year's Michigan? It's these things are you can kind of align them. Don't get me wrong. Like there are the group of 5 team, the Citadel that you're playing this week, they're probably not going to be great, right? But like when you're making these schedules, they are so hard to make. You have to make them so far in advance. It's impossible to know how good these teams are going to be.
Yeah.
Like Florida has a super difficult schedule this year. I don't know how long in advance they scheduled UCF, but like, do you think they expected UCF to jump into a power conference and do the things that they like when they scheduled that game? Probably not. So I think it's a really dumb argument for something that this sport has no control over. Like there's minimal control to who you play every year. And the only thing I think that does control that is like the conferences. Like if you play 8 conference games or 9 conference games, I think it's like the biggest difference, truly. But like outside of that, I think it's super hard to control. Let's get to dogs of the week before we get into. I think let's cut the SEC talk that we had planned because I'm going to be honest. I think we kind of just had it for the most part. So.
Oh yeah, that felt like it was it. You know that it needed to be said as well. But yeah, we'll go to dogs of the week. We don't want to hold you guys for too long. What are we at? Like 50 minutes already?
Yeah, 42.
Okay, so then so my dog of the week, and we talked about this, so I don't even need to go into it much further. But it's Cade Klubnik, not only for just the overall performance, but that run after. I mean, in no way, shape, or form was any Clemson fan expecting that in that moment. And he just saved the season. You were seeing it on social media. Also, dog of the week, Sean McDonough for one of the best calls of the year.
Incredible call!
What a dog he is!
Incredible call.
He's the inflection, the volume raise as Klubnik breaks free, and oh my God, it just is a goosebumps moment. And Clemson is not eliminated, Cody, and that's crazy to say because we were all mentally prepping as like. We're going to go 8-4. We're going to lose to South Carolina because they're good, and it's going to be a disaster. And no, we are alive. Miami loss to Syracuse next week.
And you're so back.
And Clemson is in the ACC championship game. And I'm going to be a pain to deal with. So we'll get there when we get there. We'll talk about that next week. It'll be important next week. But for now, yes, Klubnik, dog of the week.
Hell yeah. I have 2 dogs of the week. These dogs were barking in the same damn game, and it was late night. Washington State and New Mexico. The quarterbacks in that game put on a fucking clinic, dude. John Mateer, if I could play a football game as John Mateer for a day, I would be the happiest man on earth. This dude slings the rock. He's electric with his legs. He had 375 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns, and then 9 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown rushing. And then Devin Dampier, who I can promise you this, Nick. Devin Dampier is going to be at a Power 5 program next year. He had 174 yards passing and a touchdown, and also 28 carries for 193 yards and 3 touchdowns in a 3-point win against Washington State. Yeah, I'll reread that stat line to you. 28 carries for 193 yards and 3 touchdowns for Devin Dampier.
The quarterback?
Yes.
I think I was looking at those stats earlier today from that game and was like, oh, the running back had a good day.
Yep.
quarterback not so much. I guess I didn't see that it's the same guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's
And the
nuts.
1 yard touchdown to win it with 21 seconds
Yeah,
left.
I did see that.
So Devin Dampier, John Mateer, dogs of the week, dude. Love
Yeah,
little late night.
and
That's the
Washington
late
State
night
lost.
Pac-12 type of action that I've been missing in my life.
Washington State lost, so we don't have to deal with the. That actually was like one of those like doomsday scenarios that I
Yeah.
actually did not want at all. Sometimes I
Yeah.
root for them because I'm like, what's the committee gonna do? Like we all
Because
get to
you're
rage
a
at you.
disgusting sicko like me.
Right.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just like I want to yell at you. But this one, I was like, oh, please just lose Washington State because they might make the mistake of putting you in, and I don't fucking want that at all. And then I just don't care enough if they don't put you in. Like, so let's just have them lose. They did. Happy about it in general.
Yep. Week 13 preview. But before we get into week 13 preview, Nick, you know what makes great gifts? Tickets and
Okay.
experiences, going to basketball games, going to football games, going to bowl games. These experiences, absolutely incredible. And get your tickets at SeatGeek. Use promo code Smash Hits Sports, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Get you some tickets for the holidays. Get them as gifts. Go experience some games. I wish I was at the Notre Dame Georgetown game at Georgetown.
Notre
Notre
Dame
Dame
looks good.
tournament team, baby. We'll
Notre
talk
Dame
about
looks
that
really
later.
good. Yeah, yeah. Well, college basketball, we're gonna have to. Feast week is coming up. We're gonna have to talk about that. Might be a next week
Yeah.
episode, a little bonus episode, college basketball wise, because Cody, am noticing, um, I'm like a little behind schedule. It is so early,
Yeah.
but I'm so locked in on NFL and college football that like I'm trying to watch. Like I watched the championship classic games.
Yep.
I've been watching Clemson. Clemson lost to Boise State yesterday, which right after this, the Ravens lost to the Steelers, so it was a double dagger.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
yeah,
Love that
no,
for you.
not nice. um, but yeah, I'm a little behind schedule. So if we do this episode, that'll motivate me to actually fully like commit to my preseason research
Yep.
that I need to do.
That will be coming down the pipe. So to give a recap, I am 92-48 on the season. I went 8-4 last week on my picks. Nick is 94-46. So he's got a 2-game lead on me coming down the stretch. He was 7-5 this past week. So let's get into this week's picks. UNLV at San Jose State is a big game for the Mountain West. I think this game is going to be a lot of fun. It's a Friday night, which is kind of why I put it on here. UNLV back into the top 25, and I think deservedly so. They are a 7.5-point favorite. This game is at San Jose State. Nick, who you got?
Sucks that this is the first one, and this is one that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but this is the hardest one for me because San Jose State has been hanging around in these big spots, big time, and they've yet to get that win. Like they were beating Boise State 14-0, were they not? I mean, it was
Yep. Yeah, it was 14-0, about to be 21-0 if they didn't throw an interception.
yeah, like it was officially code red for Boise. And Washington State earlier in the year, they went to like triple overtime. So it feels like San Jose State is either due and they're going to go get it at home, or they've just had enough of trying and accept this season's an L. I can't tell at all, and that sucks. But I'll go San Jose State because I feel like you're going to go UNLV.
Yeah, this game is really up in the air for me. I like what San Jose State's doing. I sneaky think that they're going to upset Stanford the last week of the year because that game is at San Jose State.
That's not enough, is it?
Stanford beat Louisville,
That's
so we
true.
didn't talk about that. But
That's
Stanford,
true. That's true.
Louisville,
'Cause I'm
all-time
gonna
piss down
say,
your leg job. But I do think UNLV is very much not dead in the Mountain West. They need a Colorado State loss in order to make it to the Mountain West Championship game because I don't think Colorado State has a conference loss yet. However, UNLV, I understand that people kind of wrote them off after they lost to Boise State. This UNLV team is 3 points away from beating Syracuse and 5 points away from beating Boise State. They've lost by 8 points the entire year. and that's it.
They're
Like,
good.
this is a good
They
team.
are
They
very
beat
good.
Kansas early in the year.
Mhm.
I like UNLV, so I'm going to take the Rebels here. But
I think they
that
are
should be a very fun
legit good.
Friday night game.
And the thing is, if UNLV does win and they make it to the Mountain West Championship game, I think they could beat Boise in that game,
Oh yeah,
which
yep,
shakes everything up. That shakes
yep,
everything up big time. So
yeah. I
I have
like
San
their
Jose State just to differ because it's a tough one.
Yep. Love it. The biggest game of the weekend. We have two ranked matchups this weekend: IU, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, Army. Just like everybody thought. Um, IU at Ohio State.
That's a good
This
line.
Ohio State's an 11-point favorite. I
Yeah.
hate that line. I hate that line. I think it's disgusting. I'm taking Indiana
Mm-hmm.
to cover,
And win.
and I'm going to take Indiana to win.
All
I'm
right,
going to take Indiana to win.
dude. I think this is the exact type of line that Signetti wants. He wants
Yes.
this line. He didn't want to be like, he didn't. If it was a pick'em or something, he doesn't have that fuel. But he's like, we're 11 points worse than this Ohio State team. The only thing is that this is in the shoe. But
Yep.
I think Ohio State fans, even with that loss to Oregon, I think their egos are a little too high.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're saying, like, oh, I can't wait for Indiana to come in. I can't wait to show them we're still boss. Now, I'm going to pick it. I'm going to pick it because it is sort of like a, how the hell can you rationalize and close your eyes and have Indiana win? But I think I think they could be up 7 in the fourth. And it's like, oh my God. And then maybe a little bit of the disaster, the crumbling, the we're not used to being there scenario. This is at noon, is it not?
Yes, it's a noon kickoff.
That, dude.
Yes, fuck that. Two thoughts. I weirdly think that IU would have a better chance if this game was at night. Like,
I agree.
Because
I agree.
It seems like a more upset vibe. I think that part of the reason people have such bad SEC bias is that a lot of the best games in the Big Ten are played early in the day and they aren't highlighted at the end of the night. Like the night game for the Big Ten this week are just, they're not good at all. So they put the best games at noon and people either don't watch them and they're busy watching their own team. I think it's part of the reason why people have anti Big Ten bias because they don't get to watch some of the best games. This sucks that this is noon.
This to me is a crime. Like, I'm honestly more okay with Ohio State, Penn State being at noon just because that game has been at night a lot, it feels like.
Yeah.
Like when I think back in the past, and then they just play all the time in meaningful games. So it's like, whatever, put them at noon. Maybe the first and only time that this game has ever mattered between Ohio State and Indiana.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta make it more special than a noon game, man. You have to. It's a shame.
I agree 1,000%.
And you're going Indiana. So two differing twice already.
Yep. And potentially a third here with this next one. 9 Ole Miss at Florida. Florida is a 10-point dog in this game.
I can't do it. I'm going Ole Miss. I can't do it. But I can see it in your face. I can see it in your eyes.
I can't bet a 10-point underdog 2 games in a row. So
okay.
I'm going with Ole Miss. However, how funny would it be if the SEC gets flipped on its head by Florida knocking out one of their top 10 teams, giving them a third loss? Like that would completely shake up the entire framework of the SEC and how this thing could end down the stretch. I think they could do it. If DJ Lagway plays like he played last weekend, he absolutely could do it. However, Ole Miss, they've been playing some pretty good football as of late. I think they're pretty dialed in.
The problem is they look different than they did in the Kentucky.
That like 3 or 4 week stretch.
Yeah, where it's just like, what in the hell is going on with Ole Miss? Like they look again, I had them finishing the year ranked number 1 in the country. That's how good I thought their team was. I can't pick them to lose to Florida and miss out on the playoff. I can't do it.
Yeah, which I think is probably the right thing to do. Big Ten matchup, Wisconsin, Nebraska. I kind of like this game, kind of hate it. Both of these teams are 5-5, and while I think both of them like could win next weekend. Nebraska plays Iowa, which is absolutely not an easy game, and Wisconsin plays Minnesota, which is also absolutely not an easy game. I think both of these teams are desperate to get to bowl contention.
Well,
Desperate.
Nebraska especially.
Yeah.
And if I was smart, I would actually pick Wisconsin here because it feels like one of those moments where the whole world knows Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl game, in forever, like
Mhm.
literally forever, and they know, like, okay, they have to play Iowa night. Like, this is their chance to do it, hosting Wisconsin. I think too many people would be sad to see Nebraska lose,
Mhm.
and miss a bowl again than they would be to just sacrifice their emotions and take Wisconsin, which makes me think Wisconsin's going to win. But I am one of those people. I am one of those people.
I am him.
I
I'm the
am him.
man that I was talking about.
I am too sad. I can't root for Wisconsin in this game because Nebraska fans are going to be depressed. And I have a heart, Cody. I have a heart, and I just don't want them to be sad because they deserve happiness one time. Okay, it was looking so good, and they might go 5-7. And that's bullshit. So come on, Nebraska, please. Ugh.
I am, and because of that, I'm going to pick Wisconsin.
Oh my
Give me,
god.
give me Wisconsin. I think that their happiness and their lifeblood is going to come down to the last game of the year, and they are going to have to beat Iowa on the road in Kinnick Stadium
Yeah,
against like Iowa's fourth string quarterback or like a linebacker that they threw quarterback pads on, and it's going to be gross and ugly. So I'm hoping for that. Give me Wisconsin in this one.
oh god. Freaking nightmare if Wisconsin wins this game. It's a nightmare.
Yep. Yep. Um,
Ugh.
I threw Kentucky at Texas on here. I'm
Word
going to
up.
be honest. It's just it's a game where two SEC teams are actually playing each other. So
Do you want to look for another game? Because that is unnecessary. I agree
I
that
don't like unless we threw on like a Iowa Maryland or
the schedule
I
this week.
I looked. There's
There's
not a ton
nothing.
on here, man. It gets kind of gross. It'd
Yeah.
be like Stanford Cal, like
Oh, the game.
Missouri
There
Mississippi
you go.
State. So
No, I don't care about that game in the slightest.
Pitt Louisville.
SMU Virginia's there because part of me is like,
Yeah,
oh, Virginia, but I still don't think either of us would end up picking against
yeah.
SMU. Florida State, Charleston Southern. We
One
take
win Charleston Southern against one win Florida State is that's disgusting. Is that game a pick 'em? You did not just
Florida
say that
State,
game was.
Charleston Southern.
Oh, I was gonna fucking say. Oh my god. I
That showcases how bad Florida State really is. Yeah, no, I don't think there is. I mean, it's a 20-point spread, so it's gross, but
yeah.
I think I'm with you in the sense that we just keep it.
Yep. All right. Hey,
Alabama.
sometimes you got to take a layup. Sometimes you got to take a layup. So give me Texas.
Okay, I will take Texas.
All right. Keeping it moving. Penn State at Minnesota. I think Minnesota is about as live of it as it gets in this game. I think this game is going to be ugly. I think it's going to be gross. I think it's going to be a close football game. Minnesota has been playing like well enough. I think they've slid a little bit from where they were when they were playing like some really good ball. But that being said, this game being at Minnesota, I'm taking Penn State. However, I think this game gets gross, ugly, like a 17-15 close end of the game type of deal.
I think Penn State's found their swagger a little bit. More so than some years past where they're just, they don't look fun when they're winning their games and then they finish 10th in the country. And it's like,
Yeah.
whatever. Obviously, they lost to Ohio State. But outside of that, I feel like they've been playing some good ball. And I don't know. I feel like this is one of those games where people see it and they remember when Minnesota pulled off the upset 5 years ago. And people are
Yeah.
like, oh, look at that spread. That's not too bad. And a lot of people are like, Penn State doesn't deserve to be fourth in the country. Like, they stink. So a lot of haters out there that are probably going to fall into the trap of taking Minnesota that, I wouldn't have thought is a trap, but I think it's going to become one, just based on public betting averages. So I'm going to go Penn State with confidence in that one.
Love it. Love it. BYU at Arizona State, the 14 team and the number 21 team. Massive, massive, massive implications for the Big 12 championship game. Basically, winner gets in. I love this matchup because we are watching BYU coming off of a game where they did not play well. Their offense did not look good against Kansas. And Arizona State is coming off of a game where they just beat the absolute piss out of Kansas State. Like, they just up and down the field. Scatabo looked incredible.
Yeah, BYU knows a couple of things about beating the piss out of Kansas State. So this is Goliath versus Goliath in the Big 12, which is crazy.
Just like we all predicted.
Yeah.
I think Arizona State is playing such good football right now, man. Like, they are playing such good football. Like, multiple consecutive weeks where they've just rolled. Like, outside of they lost to Cincinnati on the road, but like, they've been playing really well at home. I'm going to take Arizona State here. I give me the Sun Devils.
I am also going to do that. For very similar reasons, because I believe in this Arizona State team. I want to bring up this statistic. It's the same EPA efficiency stat, where it's kind of like a predictive ranking. How good has this team played, adjusted to make all competition even? BYU, for as good as their record is, right? They are outside of the top 25 in this stat. Like, they are 27th in the country. Arizona State, not that they're much higher, but they are within the top 25. And and I'm sure BYU was outside the top 25 before this past week too, because they just haven't outside of the Kansas State game that good. So and some of the efficiency metrics, like Arizona State is top 10 in special teams, top 10 in hidden yards avoided. They're so well coached. Like, it's these
which is
little
wild after Arizona State had that game where they missed so many field goals that they did an open tryout for their kicker.
But, I know. Well, I think it's not necessarily. I think it's more like
it's total like the coverage and all that, but like
and like kick. Like, I think field goal wise, they're probably it's towards the bottom still, but it's. I like Arizona State. I think they're playing really, really well and are better than BYU in actually pretty much every facet of the game right now. So give me Arizona State.
Love it. Another massive game for the Big 12. Colorado at Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a trap game? Is this
for who at this point?
Is Kansas an absolute like we said, man? They're just a war machine.
No,
they're on a
They're a wagon right now. So I think this could be a trap game for Kansas. They because they're too confident in themselves, perhaps. Like, I mean, it's gotten to the point where they're playing so well, they're winning so many of these big games. It's like a double reverse. But you tell me your thoughts.
Colorado has so much fucking swag right now, and Travis Hunter has taken the lead for the Heisman, and I just don't think that if this train's going to derail, I just don't think it derails in Lawrence, Kansas. I just don't see how that's the place that it happens. So somebody's got to win this conference. Somebody's got to represent their team or their conference in the college football playoff. And like, why not Colorado? Why not Dion? Why not primetime?
Would be
They're
a great
built for
story.
this shit. It would be one of the best stories in modern sports, especially after they won one game 2 years ago. One game. So give me Colorado. Give me Colorado. Shadur. Also, my bet of the weekend, which didn't hit last weekend. Fuck South Carolina. You soft. My bet of I also didn't know Brady Cook was going to play. So, hey, hands up. That's a
True.
material
That's
change.
true.
Over 49.5 might be the lock of the millennium in this game. The offenses are going to score points. Like Jalen Daniels, Devin Neal, Shadur Sanders, Travis Hunter. They're putting up points. Like both teams might hit 49. The over
Yeah.
lock.
It's this is such a tough one, man. Because I really do want both these teams to succeed, and I've always been a Deion Sanders Colorado supporter. I think they have a lot of haters, and I think like ESPN is part of the reason why. Because they just wouldn't stop talking about him.
Oh yeah.
But like truly, to my deepest core value, I want to see them succeed. Yet Kansas, they've been more miserable for longer, and they're worse this year with higher expectations. So if anything, Kansas deserves to win, deserves my support tenfold more than Colorado right now. They absolutely have earned it with their failures. If that's my core value inside is the underdog story. So I think I just have to root for Kansas to continue this warpath, even if it's at the expense of one of the coolest stories ever. So I'm going to go with Kansas, but it does feel like a pick 'em. It really does.
Yeah, and I mean I think the line reflects it. These are some damn good like players in this team. Like this seems like a players game. You know what I mean? Like Dion and Lance Leipold, great coaches, but like I think there are going to be some guys who make plays in this game, and that ends up being kind of what decides it. You know what I mean? Like there are going to be one or two huge plays, like huge plays. The next game, 18 Army versus Notre Dame. I called it a couple weeks ago that Army was going to go undefeated and win this football game. I don't love the fact that this is Yankee Stadium neutral site. I think that kind of sucks. I wish it was on Army's campus, but I understand why they don't do that. Nick, I just sent you a text with Notre Dame's uniforms. Is
Okay.
this a uniform game for Notre Dame? Do they roll wearing these uniforms? Because I think they do. I will throw them up on the screen at this point. I'm going to if you're watching on YouTube, I'm raising my arms and shit so that way I can
Nah,
note
these
to put
are
the picture of the uniforms. But
hmm
I think this might be a uniform game. The Four
What would
Horsemen.
you even call this? Font feels like it's like ancient Roman Catholic, like elite, and it's
Yeah.
golden with like, I mean, again, what like an omniscient like kind of blue. I mean, you guys are seeing it right now, so I don't have to describe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, these jerseys are crazy. I need to see armies. Do we have armies? If they're dripped in all white, then it's two positives makes negative.
Army uniforms for Notre Dame. Regardless, while I'm looking this up, I'm picking Notre Dame. I do think that they are going to roll like the line is 16 and a half. I think they go far beyond that. This Notre Dame team is playing
Yeah, you guys
unbelievably
are
well
really
right
good.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And like defensively, even more than they're just humming. They're humming. So
Yeah, you really have no idea when that Notre Dame, little blip is going to occur. It always happens, but we've already had it this year. We didn't
yep.
see it coming, obviously, but it happened. And I don't think it's going to happen twice. So I'm
Yeah.
going to go Notre
Uh,
Dame.
I also, so I'm going to put this on the edit as well. You are now seeing Army's uniforms. I'm going to say this right now. This is the uniform game of the year. Outside of maybe Army Navy, this is the uniform game of the year.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Uniform game of
Dude.
the year.
Dude, yeah, so that's what I mean. That's what I mean when I say like you were countered because now like your uniforms, yeah, sure, they're great, but Army's uniforms, I actually might say are better. I think these are actually better.
Ooh, actually, change of material. Those are for the Army Navy game.
Okay.
Those
Okay.
are for the Army Navy game.
Well,
Damn it.
hold your britches, folks.
Damn it.
No,
Damn it.
this is well, that makes
All
sense.
right. Either way, by the time this comes out, I'm going to put up Army's uniforms just so it's not confusing. But, or maybe I don't. I don't know. Maybe I cut this whole thing. But that being said, I love Notre Dame. I love them in this game. Give me the Irish.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, keeping it moving. We have Texas A&M at Auburn. This line, disgustingly close. 3 points? Surely it's got to be more than 3 points.
Yeah, that's the trap line of the week. It's the trap line of the week, and for that reason, I actually am going with Auburn. Because why? Because why is it 3? It literally should not be that. And Auburn, I will say, they've been hanging around in some games. Like, they're obviously bad, but they're good enough to pick up a win in the SEC. Like, they're fine. They'd be okay in like the Big 12 or something like that. So I think they could do it. I do. But it's really just line.
I just have to roll with Texas A&M. I understand like why this line is ugly and gross and is the way that it is. But that being said, Auburn has been fucking awful this year.
Yeah, so bad.
Awful. They just beat UL Monroe, and before that have lost 5 of 6 with their only win coming against Kentucky.
Yeah,
like had they not played UL Monroe, they would be on a absolute losing skid. They're playing just god awful football. So I'm taking Texas A&M. Nick, a game I threw on here because it's a pseudo conference championship. Washington State at Oregon State.
True.
Both of these teams just suffered awful losses. Washington State's a little bit more respectful against New Mexico, but Oregon State was just shut out by Air Force. That program in a dreadful spot. So I'm going to take Washington State to win the Pac-2 championship this year.
I'm going to take Washington State as well, but this is a rivalry game. You never know what's going to happen. Pac-2 championship. Battle for they'll have to create a trophy for this game.
Yeah.
Pac-12, just the Pac-12 trophy.
Yeah. It's just the Pac-12 championship trophy is just what they play for.
Trophy. Battle for the Pac-12 championship.
I love it. Love it. Last game on the slate, Alabama at Oklahoma. Oklahoma, can they get nice? Can they do it? They had that weird game against Missouri.
Not with Jackson Arnold at the helm. He's a freaking bozo. Freaking Forrest Gump playing quarterback. He's an idiot.
Love it. Forrest Gump playing quarterback. Yeah. Oklahoma, they're coming off a bye, but I don't see a world. Give me Alabama. They're going to roll.
Same.
All right. Well, a hell of an episode this week. Huge slate for college football. I'm excited for this. This is an awesome time of year. Couple more weeks until we know who is playing in the college football playoff, and I absolutely cannot wait. So if you've listened to this point, thank you. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Be a friend, tell a friend, and we will see you in the next one.